It's Jack Berkowitz. I'm the Chief Data Officer of Securiti.ai on our ongoing set of interviews with C-level executives, CDOs, CDAOs about sort of the concerns at the top level. Today, I've got a really exciting guest because I'm a sports fan, and I will break it to you in just a second who he is. But before we get there, just a brief reminder, Securiti is a company that works on data security, data privacy, and now AI security and AI privacy, in particular with our new launch of GenCore AI that helps you build, govern, and manage AI capabilities. So with me today is Paul Ballew. Paul is the Chief Data and Analytics Officer of the NFL, National Football League. And if I look a little tired today, it's because we're filming this the morning after a late night game that I happen to watch. I'm not even going to talk about who won or lost. But anyway, Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
You're welcome, Jack. Very nice to see you as well.
Yeah. So, Paul, you've had a long career in this, right? You're now with the NFL, but before that, you were with another firm for quite a while. My question really is to start is how do you feel things have been changing in our field, particularly at the business level for the understanding, right? When you and I were setting out, it was like, well, gee, we have to show people why data and analytics matter. Today, it's almost the opposite, isn't it?
A little bit. I think at the core of our profession, if I go back almost 4 decades ago in my journey, we're still trying to help business make better or answer better questions or provide better answers to questions and to optimize the business and connect with customers and all those core things we were focused on. But now there's a belief that we can really do that versus we were advisors that were brought in. We were the smart people that showed up once a quarter, or we did forecast or market research or other things. So there is more of a belief that we're an integral part of that decisioning process. And in some cases, we automate the decisioning, we bring new tools in and alike. So I always look at it in the sense of we're still trying to answer business questions that are pretty similar to where we were decades ago, but the speed, the precision, and the fact that we have a seat at the table is the big change. And there's virtually no organization of any size that doesn't have something going on in our space now. You see that with the rise of the profession and the roles and the functional areas. But really what it reflects is the fact that the universe has come to accept the fact that data and analytics is an essential part of optimizing your business and connecting with your customers.
That's right. That's right. And, connecting with your customers, connecting with, whether it's fans or players or, owners and everybody else, that you're right in the middle of it all. Right. But when we were doing our sort of pre-interview, you talked an interesting thing about, hey, you're managing multiple stakeholders and looking at multiple stakeholders, maybe all looking at the same piece of data to say, but they have different interests, different understandings, different things. Talk to me about not just that, but also managing expectations or managing all these different constituents.
I think one of the interesting parts for the journey of anybody in our field is that they have to live within an organism, and the organisms are unique. So in automotive, where I spent decades of my life, you had to deal with dealers, but you also had to deal with organizational areas that were siloed. You had brands that had power, you had product development, you had regional offices and the like. On the NFL, we kind of take that to a different level because we had 32 clubs that are technically independent entities that roll into a league. And we're there to support the clubs and help the clubs while maintaining the integrity and the success of the league overall. And then you overlay on top of that sponsors and partners, and the list just goes on and on. So I look back on it and say, to be successful, you have to understand the organism by which you're functioning in. And then you have to make sure that you're providing value and the capabilities that they're looking to benefit from. And then each part of the journey is just a little different. Is it different in a trade association, which is what the NFL is? Yeah, it's one of the more interesting stops because you're dealing with 32 entities, and the 32 entities are owned by individuals who are extremely successful, have been extremely successful in a variety of other areas. In some cases are very knowledgeable about data and analytics because they'll come from a private equity firm or they'll come somewhere else. And Yeah, it makes for interesting days where you got owners and presidents, and then you got the league, and then you got sponsors, and but it's part of the fun and part of the joy of who we are. And my best advice to anybody in our field is realize that you operate in an organism, a functional area that is one that you have to be part of, and you've got to help and you've got to provide value to them. And you still want to be objective and you want to bring the science to bear, but you don't live in a vacuum.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is really the key, right? That I've seen in the business over the past few years as we're that partner, right? Real-time changes in data can affect revenues of a company or an organization overnight, right? And it's that notion that you need to understand and you need to learn and you need to be aware of more than just the technology or the fact that Databricks has a certain speed versus Snowflake, or the fact I had a CDAO reach out to me today. He's interviewing for another job and he was asking me about, data infrastructures and everything. And I was like, that's interesting. But if you're interviewing for a CDAO job, your question probably should be a little bit higher, about, well, what does that company do? How do they make money? How are you going to help them make money? Or is it a government thing, in which case you're going to help them with their mission? So I've been seeing this change. You, like you said, you were in automotive, now you're in sports and entertainment. How would you say to learn that type of information? How do you absorb that? I mean,
Yeah, time in the business, and you have to be connected to the business. The ultimate goal for us is you want to be that trusted advisor. And to be that trusted advisor means you're knowledgeable about the science that you bring to bear, but you're also knowledgeable about the business. So in the case of my long tenure at General Motors, we were involved in everything: mergers, acquisitions, sales planning, incentives, product development, safety, you name it, we were involved in it. And the reason we were involved in it is we had a deep understanding of the business. And there was a trust level that comes about from that, because you're viewed as a trusted advisor who's there to help. Now, you're not there to glad hand or do any of those things. You're there to help. And that to me is the ultimate goal. So when you're going into a new role or a new function, investing as much time on the business side as you are on the tech stack or the data environment or the team or the skill levels, which are all very important to be successful in our job. You have to invest time with the business. It's also important to try to understand the culture of the business that you're going into, because the culture of the business does matter. If you're going into a digital native, it's a completely different cultural environment than a legacy retailer or a financial services firm. And the decision processes are different. The expectations are different. The nature and the speed of the business. Everybody's moving at faster speeds because the data is more readily available with no latency. But those organizations are different. My time in financial services were radically different than my time in automotive, despite the fact that they were both large Fortune 100, well-capitalized organizations with lots of resources. They were two completely different animals.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So look, last question, and then I'll tell you, and then I'll summarize it. But last question, right? Gen AI, all of this new capability coming out. What do you see as actually maybe not the upside of it all, but what are you thinking about how to protect, or how I just gave you the answer, but what do you think some of the biggest concerns are right now as you look at, either using it in your business or looking at others using the technology?
So to me, besides always being on top of the regulatory issues and whether it's consequential decisions or other things that go along with it, the biggest challenge we've had in this journey over the last few decades, and we've had different moments like this throughout. We had the moments in the late 90s where the internet became a tool to be used for all sorts of transactional e-commerce purposes, and we can think about what that meant for the organization. Or in 2005, 2006 with smartphones, which took that to the completely new level, versus 10 years ago, where for the first time we were able to really harness the power of transactional data at scale. Each one of those has presented opportunities and challenges. And I always think it's this balancing act between you want to democratize the usage of capabilities while properly governing. And it is a tension point in organizations, it's a tension point with governments. of how you strike that balance. And it's hard because it's like squeezing Jello sometimes, where if you just try to control it and govern it and trickle it out and say, go from there. I mean, think about the advent of e-commerce in the late 90s. Every part of your organization wanted to go set up a website and a landing page and this and that and that, blah, 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 blah. And these organizations quickly said, oh my God, I got to go set up a digital functional area and I've got to set up a unit for e-commerce, and which they did for 2 or 3 years. And then they blew it all back up and shipped it all back to the business. Unfortunately, some organizations, it took them 15 years to go figure that out after you get through the greenhouse. And that to me is always the tension point. Each phase of this, the technology exists to help you optimize your business, to help you see the business and understand it better. And you want to provide the tools and the capabilities, but in the same regard, there's risk, either cost, reputational, legal risk, that if you're not properly doing that, you're going to negatively impact the brand. You're going to draw the wrong conclusion. You're going to make data available to ChatGPT, which you shouldn't be doing. The list just goes on, and obviously the data security issues on top of that. So it's this balancing act. And I think the benefit of being around for a period of time is I've seen this tension point enough where you then try to solve it in the appropriate way. For a data and analytics organization, one thing you do have to do properly is you're not properly governing data, comprehensive data governance, you're going to run into brick walls. And those brick walls are not just going to be inappropriate use. The data is just not going to have the quality or the integrity to support tools that require this data to be fed at scales you've never had to deal with before. So, and we saw that. I mean, you think about Gen AI. Gen AI is not new. LLM models have been around for 15 years. I mean, at the underpinnings of things like Watson and so on, very similar science. What were the limiters there? The limiters there were data. And that was the problem with the commercialization of Watson, cost effectively ingesting and curating data. And they couldn't solve the issue. Now we're better off in our ability to do that at scale. But those are the tension points, Jack, that we're going to continue to wrestle with. And I would encourage people to look at these previous points of inflection, because you can learn a lot from each one and how we responded and what did we do right and what did we do wrong. And certainly there's a desire to control and there's a desire to let me go do what I want to do. And welcome to the next phase of this journey that started in 1955.
Yeah, well, awesome. Well, look, I want to thank you, Paul, spending the time with us. I would tell you that my ending thing was Paul has a job that one day when I grow up, I want to have. I enjoy my time at Securiti, but this would catch my eye. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for taking the time as well to listen to this. At Securiti AI, what we really work on are the things that Paul was talking about, the data governance, the control, but not control for control's sake, but the control to be able to allow you to take advantage and use these new technologies. And in the case of Gen AI, to be able to use Gen AI, to be able to use your unstructured data in a new way. Check out our new Gen Core AI release. And thank you very much, Paul Ballew from the NFL. Thank you so much.
Have a nice day, guys. Bye-bye.